Alright everybody, let's say that you're drafted first overall by your favorite football team in the NFL draft. If you don't have a favorite football team, this is the perfect time to start picking one. You're obviously going to need some new gear because your old college gear is old and decrepit by now. So as opposed to going to a normal store, a Sports Authority, or Dick's Sporting Goods, you decide to go to Walmart for your athletic socks, and you're going to get cotton socks instead because you feel like those are the best for the competition. You also decide to get indoor soccer cleats as opposed to regular NFL Nike football cleats because you like the way that they move. You also feel that it's better than the Nike cleats. You also decide, as opposed to getting a regular NFL helmet, you're going to go ahead and get a baseball helmet. You don't like the way everybody else plays those regular NFL helmets, and you hate the way that it makes contact with you. Oh, one more thing. As opposed to your football gear, the normal football gear, you're going to decide to wear a rugby outfit because you believe that rugby is a lot tougher than football, and nobody should wear that much padding in a stop-and-go sport. Now, a lot of people might look at me like, Cali Effect, why would I ever do that? It's bizarre, right? Interestingly enough, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players think that exact same way when they want to play at high-level events and they want to win. The biggest thing about this and the title of this video is, are Tier 1 decks more of an investment? Are they a better investment? And the answer is yes. I'm going to be explaining to you why. Alright guys, I'm actually going to dig a little deeper into that ideology. Let's say we're going to play this super tier 2 deck that we feel can compete against the meta. As a matter of fact, we'll even use the Yang Zing deck that you guys think that I just love. And we'll take that and compete it against all these tier 1 decks because we feel it is the best. Wait, let's hurry up and pause. In order for me to be able to compete with these tier 1 decks, I have to run a bunch of different cards that don't necessarily help my strategy, just to slow them down to my pace. But that's exactly where it comes in. Why am I playing a strategy that I have to play other cards to slow down my opponent to my pace? That already instinctively tells me that the deck is not the best deck of the format. Therefore, I am already at a disadvantage as soon as I sit down on the table. One would like to say, yeah, it's something different though. But are you playing to have fun or are you playing to win at a high level event? No matter where you go, from a local level to even a YCS to a championship, the biggest decks that'll win are the decks that already have the advantage as soon as they sit down on the table. Players want to use every little thing that they can to get to the advantage, whether it's rule sharking, playing good cards, or intimidating opponents with better looking stuff. Whatever you can do to get the advantage of the opponent, you should use, and that's why you shouldn't be using a tier 2 deck at a time that you want to use a tier 1 deck to win it all. Now, I'm not saying that a tier 2 deck can't beat a tier 1 deck. I'm saying that the odds are already stacked against you. There's already at least 400 other players at a large event playing against you, and half of the smart players are going to be playing the deck to beat. So every time you sit down there, as opposed to having a 50-50 shot with both of you guys playing the best deck, you more have like a 75-25% shot, with the 75 in their favor because you decided to be original. I know what you're asking. What if you're at a local level event? What if you're there just to win locals? Well, there's a couple of other varying factors that you could say inside of a local level event. The first thing about locals is, how competitive is your local? You obviously want to be up to par, if not better, than your local level. So if everybody is at your local level playing tier 2 and tier 3 decks, why not play the tier 1 and have the easy path to it? Now, I'm not saying that this is the way the Cali Effect will do it. The Cali Effect loves his tier 2 decks. But if you were playing to win, then this is the way to do it. It's not really much else to say. You can't really knock that one person at your locals that plays that tier 1 deck just to win the tournament. You have two options. You can either play what he's playing, or you can continue to lose at him and play. It's not really much else to say about that. This all brings us back to the big question. Are tier 1 decks cost effective? Well, let's look at how Konami handles tier 1 decks. For the past year, Konami has not completely hindered a strategy of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since Artifact. That's right, since Duelist of Alliance dropped, not Shadows, Klee, Necros, or any other deck in between of those have not been hindered completely to unplayability. That gives us an idea of where these cards' prices are going to be from beginning to end. For example, Shadow cards have varied from price from the beginning to the end. Just recently they had a price spike about a couple of months ago. This makes Shadows one of the more relevant decks for the past year, giving them a steady price and allowing them to maintain some sort of value. That's what's so good about Konami nowadays. They don't tend to ban a lot of decks, they don't tend to ban a lot of strategies, so your card's price doesn't seem to drop too low in value. If you invest money into a tier 1 deck, make sure that it is a very good tier 1 deck. It is a deck that you know how to play and a deck that you are willing to play. Also, over time, make sure that you are winning those tournaments to make your return on your investment. You're going to win tournaments a lot easier with a tier 1 deck than any other deck that you could have been playing. Number 3 is always and never underestimate a tier 2 deck, even though you are the big fish in a small pond. Regardless of who you're playing against, what you're playing against, always think like the bigger deck. Never main board cards for tier 2 decks, always only for your decks at your level. Always have that for sideboard situations. If you play to those according rules, your tier 1 deck, no matter how much you invest into me, should pay off for it in the near, if not distant future. Now, finishing up with cost. There's quite a few metrics going on. Let's say a tier 1 deck is $300, as opposed to a tier 2 deck being $150. It's obvious which ones you want to pick. You're going to probably go with the cheaper deck mainly because you have a girl to take out or you have other things to do with your life. But if you buy that $300 deck, you'll probably spend less money than the $150 deck. Why? Because every single time a set comes out, Konami does try to improve on that tier 2 deck. But unfortunately, they never seem to move over to tier 1 no matter how much support Konami does get it. Cards like Lose One Turn came out, and while it did give Cleaford a boost back to the tier 1 status, nothing else was helped out through that. It's so ironic because people will still spend $300 at the end of the format, making that tier 1 deck a tier 2 deck, a tier 1 deck, because of the prices of the new cards they have to get. It's really crazy. It's almost like, do you want to spend $300 now or later? Because there's no way really avoiding around it. Now I'm going to wrap this video up with one thing. The Cali Effect does play tier 2 decks. The Cali Effect loves tier 2 decks. The Cali Effect is a very big exception to this rule. Why? Because the Cali Effect has not bought a card for himself in a very long time. So if you guys are playing just to have fun, just to casually play, or just to make videos for YouTube, something that I like to do for you guys, then perfect. Tier 2 decks are amazing. They're actually very fun, and it's very fresh to play different decks every single time throughout the format, or even use these tier 2 decks to try to compete with those tier 1 decks, because it will be a never-ending cycle. Because actually, once that tier 2 deck beats that tier 1 deck consistently, that tier 2 deck comes over here and becomes the big dog. So, it is what it is. Thank you guys so much for watching another segment of The Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.